Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Eden Zero, chapter 155. When we last left our heroes, Shiki and Rebecca were on their way to Witch and Shora to rescue Witch. They were attacked by some drones, but the timely arrival of the three bots, Happy, Pino, and Moscow, as well as Shiki's own ether gear, allowed them to destroy the drones pretty easily. Meanwhile, back at the Lyra and Callum fight with the Rutherfords, things weren't going anywhere near as well. Kleene put up a little bit of a fight against Lyra, but Lyra was kind of very easily able to manipulate Kleene's ability against her by having Kleene end up sort of having her exploding cards circling her, and so Kleene kind of blew up. And Jinn realized that Callum was an old classmate of his at the Sky Mech Ninjutsu dojo back on Gilst, and that Jinn would never at any point beat Callum in a fight. And then Callum gets some mist punch on him, and Jinn starts fading into mist. And yeah, that's kind of where we left off, with things going really bad for the Rutherfords. So with all that being said, let's dive right on into Chapter 155, The Winds of Rutherford. Our picture here is a choice. It's with sister and Moscow in just, like, the most BDSM. Like, you see Moscow even, like, a ball gag. It's a choice. Anyway, we open where we left off with, Jinn turning into mist. I keep almost saying Kleene or Sylph for Jinn, and I don't know why. Which is why I keep kind of pausing at his name. Anyway, we see Jinn sort of fading away into mist. Wah! Ah! And Callum just looks at him, "Be gone." And we see Kleene is still alive. She's beat up. We see like the edges of her clothes are a little torn. She's kind of bloodied and burned. But she calls, "Brother!" But then she sees a whole bunch of cards from Lyra coming her way. She uses her ether gear to kind of jump out of the way. And Lyra tells her, "My ether gear specifically works on cards. It can change their numbers, make them move. But its real power is to change the card's elements." And she does something to her cards, and they electrocute Kleene. Lightning card! Ah! With my gambler's rush, even I don't know what element the cards will be. But that's what makes it so much fun. At what point does she realize, though? Because she says lightning card. At that point, she has to know that it's going to be lightning. My guess, though, is that that's going to be at least in some way part of how Lyra is defeated. She uses her gambler's rush. She doesn't know what element the cards are going to be. And then it's going to be something like wind. Which ends up powering the Rutherfords, as they are also wind users. Or maybe that'll end up helping Callum, who knows. But I expect at some point she will land on wind element, and that will kind of influence the match from there. Anyway, back with Jinn, who is fading into dust. I can't move. And then he flashes back to what Callum said, an imperial technique for altering my opponent's condition. Empire Ether. And then he flashes back to a conversation with Laguna that I don't think we've seen before. We've talked about Empire Ether in the past, but I don't, because it was Lyra who talked about Empire Ether, and I don't think we had ever heard it mentioned by name before then. But Laguna kind of explains, it has a fancy name, but it's really not that rare in the Aoi cosmos. A lot of Aoi ether gearists have that type of ability. I also think that's the first time you've heard the phrase ether gearist. That sounds new to me. Anyway, take my Tears lover, for example. It can change my opponent's condition, too. Oh yeah, and Shiki realizes the one that turns you into water when you cry. And Wise kind of grins, you have no hope against an ether gear like that. And then Homura thinks, would that I could challenge him to a duel. And Rebecca thinks, apparently you did back in World 29. I'm trying to remember the first Laguna fight, and really the only part I remember of it is Wise's kind of scheme. I don't quite remember Homura's role in that fight. Maybe a little bit. Yeah, because I think in the end it was Homura and Laguna, seemingly, because Wise kind of played his stunt. Um, but anyway, Laguna goes on, but it has a weakness too. It works by forcibly reconfiguring the flow of ether in our opponent's bodies. And Happy reacts, "You reconfigure their ether?" And Pino chimes in, "But if you do that," and our sister picks up. That's the second time I have said witch instead of sister tonight. "The ether would affect their physiology and alter their physical state." And then Witch chimes in, "And that is how you can change your targets into liquid, Lord Laguna?" And Hermit kind of thinks about it. "Theoretically, it isn't impossible, but..." And Moscow then chimes in, "Moscotically, it is massively mystifying." But Laguna then sort of counters all of the sort of shock and awe about the power of Empire Ether. But that's exactly its weakness. And Jean sort of listens in. "Generally, most Ether gears are powers that enhance the user's own abilities, while Aoi Ether gear weakens their opponent's abilities. But it does that by forcing a reconfiguration of Ether. If you can bring the flow of your Ether back to its normal course, you can change yourself back." Okay, so basically the problem with Empire Ether is that if you have a strong enough control of your own ether, then you can kind of counter it. And so if Gene can do that, he can sort of stop the carburetor, however it's pronounced, from dissolving him. And Wise chimes in, "And here you are blabbing to us about your own weakness. What's the catch?" And Laguna counters, "I'm telling you about the ones you'll be fighting. A lot of Ether gearists in the Empire have these kinds of powers." And Shiki thinks, "But how are you supposed to change your ether back once it's messed up?" Good question. It's not as simple as it sounds. First, you must know yourself. And then we come back to the present, where Gene is mid-dissolving, and he thinks, "Know myself? Who am I?" And he moves into flashback land. I imagine it's kind of been sort of up in the air. Does he go by Gene or does he go by Chris at this moment? And I imagine the climax of this chapter is going to result in him maybe officially taking the name Chris back. Because we had that character profile. I had been calling him Chris, and that character profile had Gene, nay, Chris Rutherford. But I think this might be the moment he becomes Chris Rutherford again. Maybe. We'll see. "As a child, I was the firstborn son of the wealthy Rutherford family. In my youth, I was kidnapped by Mueller and lost my limbs. Then I was rescued by Draken, who took me to Gilst. I spent my days searching for Sister so she could heal Kleene. I started attending the Skymech dojo to get stronger. Then I did all kinds of dirty work for the fake Sister. Until I encountered the Eden Zero." So here's a question I never really thought to ask. What's the timeline? But I don't quite... The timeline doesn't quite track for me. Because he's rescued by Draken. And then at some point, he leaves Draken to go join up with the fake Sister and Rogue Out. And then he goes back to Draken as Kleene... Or not Draken, Draken as Kleene's subordinate. It seems... there's just something a little bit weird about... He's with Draken, he leaves Draken, then goes back to Draken. I guess Draken, I keep saying Dragon. For some reason, my words are just really, really off tonight. Anyway, I mean, it's not the weirdest thing in the world that he would sort of leave Draken for a while, especially with the motivation of finding Sister, and then when that didn't work, I guess, go back into his orbit, I guess. But for some reason, it's just sort of weird to me. Either way, until I encounter the Eden Zero. And then he flashes back with some of the adventures he's had. Seeing, him hanging out with Homura on the ship. We see Kleene on Red Cave, I think. Him having a meal with Kleene and Laguna. Post Foresta, the training with what's-his-face, Xenolith, right? Again, my names are just slipping tonight. Maybe it's that it's been like 5 days and I last put out a video. But I'm just not good at talking right now. We see Kleene sort of fawning over Moscow, and Kleene sort of standing strong against some enemies. The next thing I knew, it became my home. Who am I? I don't really know. Oh, he's overdriving. He is overdriving. We see his skin turns black as the ether lines spread. But my once dark, dead-end future is now wide open. Now I can be whatever I want. Whoever I want. That is who I am. And the darkness doesn't quite stick. He seems to not actually make it all the way into Overdrive, because the gene that decks Callum isn't really any physically different than the real gene, than the normal gene. Either way, Callum is now injured, kind of shocked. What? He normalized his ether? Sky Mech Ninjutsu attack. And Callum also ready. Sky Mech attack. And Jinn attacks with Windstorm Palm Strike. And Callum counters with Fog Razor. And then there's this kind of clash of wind that doesn't really hit anyone. And Callum looks at him. I see you've improved, Jinn. A little. And Jinn looks at him. Yeah, because I still want to beat you. And then we get another flashback to Jinn's time at the dojo. Callum, they said you're leaving. Is it true? And Callum sort of pauses for a second and grins. I'll never know my real strength if I stay on this filthy planet. And Jinn marches over, but I still haven't beat you. Yeah, you'll never do that. So a part of me wants to kind of talk for a sec about Callum, Gilst, and the Empire. Because Callum, I've kind of talked in the past about how the Empire really feels like a government. They're kind of distinctly lawful if you go back to like that classic alignment chart. And while some characters like Lyra are a little bit more on the chaotic side, and Shora as well, you get the sense the Empire as a whole is very like lawful evil. We see that in Milani before she kind of breaks down like, I know we're in the wrong here. And I can kind of see that being Callum's thing. He's with the Empire. He's, working to wipe out bot kind. But it's lawful. It's the lawlessness of guilt he can't really get behind, I think. I'm assuming all of this off of like a single word in one panel, so it could be way off base here. But that's my thinking. Anyway, he turns back to Jinn. Jinn, you'd be better off leaving Gilst too. But Jinn responds, I can't leave. Not until I fix Kleene. That sister is supposed to be somewhere on this planet. And besides, I still owe Draken. Okay then. And he just walks off, waves them behind. Hope I see you again someday. And Jinn calls out, yeah, and that'll be the day I beat you. And in the present, Callum counters, but you will never beat me. And we see the handprint appears on Jinn's chest, and he's blasted back. And we see some more flashbacks to Jinn, telling Shiki, I forget what exact moment this is. I have no friends. That seems early enough. He's sort of drawn with these heavy lines over his eyes. It's kind of foreboding. And then we see Shiki later on. But that means friend, right? And then Jinn kind of talks to Callum some more. Callum, I finally realized you were my very first friend. And he's transforming. Now's his overdrive. There it is. Yeah. We see he's very much in silhouette, but we can see his ether line starting to spread across his body. And Callum is shocked. What the? His ether levels are skyrocketing. And he flashes back to Nasei's text. No, you have to listen. These guys can OD. And Callum realizes what went wrong. And then we cut back to Lyra, who's throwing more and more cards at Kleene. Take that! And that! And Kleene just stares at her. Her eyes are kind of lighted out. The cards kind of tear apart in Kleene's wind, shocking Lyra. What? The wind is shredding my cards! And we see Kleene's own ether gear start to go overdrive. And Jinn tells Callum, Kleene and I have made up our minds. And Kleene kind of chimes in, talking to Lyra, to protect our home. And both of them say, the winds of Rutherford will carry our ship forward. Wind god skyrending slash! And we see Jinn has grown like eagle wings as he cuts through Callum. Kleene Kleene is a much less physical attack, which makes sense with her not being, Jean uses ninjutsu, which is a bit more physical, whereas Kleene just summons elemental attacks. Variable Cyclone! She's got an angel wing, she has this new dress on, this sort of, I don't know, I'm not good at, as anyone who's seen my cuckoo videos can attest to, I'm not an expert in fashion terminology. I've got this sort of X strap thing going on. The bits covering her breasts have this sort of wing edge to them. It's a really neat look. Ties in with the angel wings she's got going on. It's, I mean, both their overdrive forms are cool as hell. I wish we saw a bit more of Jean's in this panel. It's his isn't particularly clear what's going on with the body. Either way, Jean's Wind God Skyrending Slash and Kleene's Variable Cyclone have ripped apart Callum and Lyra. They fall. And Jean tells them, "We will be the Wind of Edens." And we see Jean's form there, and it's fucking cool. He's got this full face mask. He's lost his sleeves. I think he doesn't quite normally have sleeves. But it's this whole tunic thing going on. The wings are so cool. Both him and Kleene maybe have my favorite Ether Gear designs. They're just really fucking cool. Yeah, hot damn there. Callum and Lyra hit the ground. The crowd goes wild. And Jean tells them, "The wind is risen. Now you just have to let it take you forward. Shiki." And with that, we cut back towards Shiki, Rebecca, and the bots. As Pino tells the group, "It is probable that Miss Witch is in that building." And Happy chimes in, "We should find the all link here too." And Shiki, Rebecca, Moscow, the whole gang run in. "Let's go. Hang in there, Witch." Rebecca somehow found the time for a change of clothes. I don't remember her wearing that tie and blazer ensemble earlier on. Either way, we see Juna watching this, the fall of Callum and Lyra, and Shiki, Rebecca, Moscow, Happy, and Pino's arrival, and she kind of gives this evil grin. "Oh, Oceans, you're just as useless as the rest of them." And that's where this chapter ends. Okay, I fucking love this chapter. I love this chapter so much. First of all, gaining superpowers by the power of self-actualization, good fucking shit. I love that it's this idea that knowing yourself is the key to breaking through Empire Ether is the kind of thing I could see being sort of hard to justify from like a scientific in-universe standpoint, but on the idea of this is a story and characters must sort of understand who they are in order to come out on top, that's just good shit. It's a literalization of the value of self-actualization. Gene has to know who he is. He has to come to grips with his past, come to grips with, what his future can be now. He has found a home. Is the thing he notes. "The next thing I knew, it became my home," he says in the middle of page 10. And he's like, "I don't know who I am, but I can be anything. And I can be whoever I want. And what I want to be is the winds of Eden." Or the wind singular of Eden. The two of them are the winds, plural. But still, that's just good fucking shit. That is some good fucking shit right there. That is some quality writing. I am all here for this fight. And then, the two of them go into their overdrive form. Kleene's fight, I will say, is far less well-defined as Jean's. Jean has this whole, inner monologue of "this is who I am." And Kleene, I'm just saying Kleene over and over again. I'm going to take a second and work out my thoughts before I just say Kleene 100 more times. So I feel like Kleene has always been happier to be with the crew than Jean has. Jean really pushed back against it at first. So it's a much bigger deal for Jean to say, I am a member of this crew. I'm a valuable member of this crew. I will push this ship forward. I am the Wind of Edens. Whereas Kleene is just like, if you had given her a title, she would have picked that already. For Jean, it's a big step of character development. And so I think that that's why it makes sense that Jean is the one who gets all this development here, gets all this focus in this chapter. But I do wish we saw a bit more of Kleene. It's the closest thing I have to a complaint in this chapter. This chapter is just so fucking good. It's so cool. Both their outfits are so good. God, this might be my favorite Overdrive form yet. It's so top tier. It's just top fucking tier. But yeah, with that, Nero 66 is all of a sudden moving into its endgame. There's no more members of the Oceans. Milani, Nase, Lyra, Callum are all defeated. Nase, I guess, could show up, because he wasn't really down for the count. He just sort of ran away. But, like, Saika's dead. Fabiano is back on Nero 1. At this point, the only real threat left is, I guess, Ijuna, who might be Rebecca's big fight, so that Shiki can have, like, a rematch with Shora. Like I said before, I do kind of wish the Shora fight ends up being sort of a group effort. Shiki couldn't beat him before, but now with the crew at his side, together, they can kind of take him down. That'd be nice. I don't quite know if they'll do that. That sort of thing that Mashima did with Hades in Fairy Tail, or Doryu in Rave Master. But we'll see. This chapter is just really fucking good, though. This chapter is just so fucking good. And I fucking loved it. It was absolutely incredible. But yeah, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, do whatever makes you happy, And remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!